Okay, let's look at dividing by 2 in a different way. We're going to start with another word problem, and this time we're still using the divisor 2, but it's going to look a little different. So let's read our problem. It says there are 10 hummingbirds in Tyler's backyard. If there are 2 hummingbirds at each feeder, how many feeders are there? Okay, I understood all those words, so let's read it again and find our important information. It says there are 10 hummingbirds in Tyler's backyard. There are 2 hummingbirds at each feeder. How many feeders are there? So instead of looking for birds this time, how many birds are there? We know how many birds there are. Now we're looking for how many feeders are there. So we're going to look at this group of 10 counters, and that represents our 10 hummingbirds. And we need to say, okay, well, there's 2 hummingbirds at each feeder. So we're going to circle 2 counters to represent the 2 birds at each feeder. And when we figure how many groups of 2 we have, then we know how many feeders we have. So I'm going to continue circling groups of 2 until all of my counters that represent my birds are circled. So I have 10 hummingbirds, that's my 10 red dots, and I've divided them into groups of 2, and that should tell me how many feeders there are. So there are blank groups of 2. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 2. So there are 5 feeders. The 10 dots are my 10 hummingbirds. The 2 in each circle are my 2 hummingbirds at each feeder. And however many circles I have, that's how many feeders. However many groups of 2, that's how many feeders. So we would still write this the same way. 10 hummingbirds divided by 2 at each feeder equals 5 feeders. Or 10 divided by 2 equals 5. So how many are there in all? There are 10 in all. This is my dividend. How many are in each group? 2 in each group. This is my divisor. And how many equal groups do I have? 5. Oh, sorry, this is my quotient. I sure hope I spelled that right. This is my quotient. So I can use groups of 2 in 2 different ways. We could use counting by 2 to find our groups, or we could say we have 2 groups, how many are in each group? Both ways work, okay? It kind of depends on the problem that you're given. In this instance, we were given the number of hummingbirds and how many at each feeder. In this problem, we were given the number of hummingbirds and how many feeders we had. And then we had to find out how many birds. So, 2 different ways of dividing by 2. You're either doing 2 in each group or 2 groups. You're going to keep working on dividing by 2, and you're going to see it both ways. I like you to work on share and show now. On the first one, you're going to complete this picture. I highly suggest using your highlighter tool, perhaps with red highlighter, to finish your dots. It's a simple click of your mouse. So in this one, you have 6 divided by 2. And they've given you 2 groups, so you need to figure out what to do with your dividend and what your quotient is going to be. On numbers 2, 3, and 4, you're writing a division equation. This is a division equation. You have this style or you have this style. They both mean the same thing, they're just written differently. Oh, and on your computer, the backslash means divided by, because we don't have one of these buttons on our computer. So you can use the backslash to equals divided by. I've seen some of you doing the percent sign, and while that's similar, this means percent, not divided by, just so you know for future use. So go ahead and switch and use this one. It's it's beside the shift key on your computer. So for right now, this means divided by. So Go ahead and work on these, share and show. Check your work when you're finished. There'll be a button down here at the bottom to make sure that you've written your equations correctly and that you've done your model correctly. Afterwards, you have some word problems to answer and a few more of this type. So for right now, make sure you check your work, make sure you're thinking clearly, and I look forward to seeing what you do.